Is Flame of Anor a good enough endgame for Legacy? Let's find out. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video, and today Troy has asked me to build around Flame of Anor. This is sort of an interesting card. At 3 mana, none of these modes are overly exciting. Draw 2 cards, destroy target artifact, 5 damage to target creature. All of those are overcosted by Legacy standards. You don't see divinations in Legacy very often. But if you control a wizard as you cast this spell, you can get 2 of these instead. And then we start looking at Kolaghan's command levels of good. Believe it or not, there was a time where Legacy was, relatively speaking, dominated by decks that were utilizing a card very similar to Flame of Anor. And although we have to jump through a hoop to get our second mode, drawing 2 cards while killing a creature or destroying an artifact is quite good. I think Snapcaster Mage and Spellstutter Sprite are kind of the obvious things to be thinking about in a Legacy context, but I'm actually excited to try out Tishana's Tidebinder alongside this card. So this is a merfolk, so it does have that downside, but it is a 3/2 with flash. When it ETBs, counter up to 1 target activated or triggered ability. If an ability of an artifact, creature, or planeswalker is countered this way, that permanent loses all abilities for as long as this remains on the battlefield. So this is kind of a pseudo stifle effect that may continue to stifle afterwards. So note that the ability that you attempt to counter does not have to be from an artifact, creature, or planeswalker. So you can do something like stifle a fetch land with this, and sometimes that's good enough. Again, this is at 3 mana though, so it's not like it's going to take your opponent off their early game mana. Let's take a look at what I put together. So this is what I came up with. I had Spellstutter Sprite in the initial versions of this, and then I decided that I really wanted to have access to Supreme Verdict in the 75. That's just something that felt very important to me, as you know, presumably I'm going to build this as a Jeskai control deck list. I think we need the white for the exile-based removal and some alternative win conditions as well. And once I knew I wanted Supreme Verdict, that meant that stacking up other fairies probably wasn't really going to work out, and that got me to this. The next thing that I wanted to do was make Snapcaster Mage good. Snapcaster Mage is kind of mid as far as Legacy cards go these days, and if I'm going to make it good, I need some additional 1-drops that I'm going to play to kind of push this a little bit harder. So we are at a whopping 18 1-drops, which feels a little high to me, but not necessarily in a bad way. After that, we need to start thinking about the alternative win conditions, because the days of ending games with small repeated attacks from things like Baleful Strix, I think, are largely over for Legacy. Like, so much of the format right now is about hitting with a Murktide Regent, hitting with a 2020, hitting with a Troll of Khazad-dûm. And once you have stabilized, you want to close the game quickly before your opponent draws a card or sets up something that is going to beat you. And Triumph of St. Catherine was something that I thought about a lot and ultimately decided against in favor of Forth Eorlingas, and I threw a Comet into the sideboard as well. There weren't a lot of lists for me to use as a starting point here. Like, when you do a search on a site like MTG Top 8 looking for deck lists with Flame of Anor, there's just like not a lot, and most of them end up coming from smaller events. Like, I think this was the one that I used as the basis for this deck, and this is from a small 15-player event. That's kind of what we're working with in terms of data for Flame of Anor. It is not a well-tested card. So yeah, with that being said, why don't we go ahead and hop into the matches here. If you like what you see today and you need to pick up some cards, check out Tales of Adventure. That is TOAmagic.com. You can use promo code ThrabenU to save 5% on your order, and I will be ordering some Outlaws of Thunder Junctions cards from them in the not too distant future. I need some new treats for Commander. All right, let's battle. I guess I'll keep this hand. I'm not like the most excited about this. I'm going to hope that being on the play, I can just leverage Spell Pierce to do something to get me out of the early turns. I can Tundra plus Mountain to have all of my colors, but I would really prefer to be on basics if possible. I'm not going to pierce that. We can do better as this game goes on in all likelihood. I end up with a Surveil land in this list. I built this a while back. No, I didn't, because I was Prismatic Vista-ing. I don't think I am going to brainstorm and potentially brainstorm lock myself here. Fantastic. I'm actually really happy to see that. So now we can potentially play this game on 3 basic lands, targeting themselves for sure. So we've got to keep in mind that Bowmasters is a thing now. The Tidebinder is pretty good against that. Don't mind Counterspell. It's a little awkward with the basic mountain here. Okay, you've got another bobble. Still bobbling themselves. I'm not really sure that I want to be the first one to blink here. Like, I'm okay just kind of staring at each other for a little while. Your Ponder is fine. Now we start getting to the point where I might discard if I don't play anything. I don't think I care. I think that's a low enough risk thing that I am willing to cast that. A Stifle. That's awkward. I can't Spell Pierce my way out of that, and I can't Counterspell either. I guess don't have another one? Fuck. Oh, we're so dead. Spell Pierce, why? Alright. That's rough. We're going to discard a Supreme Verdict. I'm not casting that this game. Yeah, I thought that whole draw-go thing was going to favor us, and it very much did not. Yeah. No, I was aware of that being a thing. That's why we weren't, like, brainstorming and just casting Flame of Anor. I can end of turn, dress down, shut off the Bowmaster ability, and then do something afterwards. But the tempo-oriented cards that my opponent has, like Daze, are going to be quite good right now. Bolt to the face. You got it. I think that's not worth Spell Piercing. The dress down just seems better. There's a Murktide. What just got exiled? Whole bunch of things. This is not going great for me, because I can dress down to stop the Murktide Regent counters, but then things like this can just happen. I think this means that I am effectively dead, and we just got tempoed out. Oh, and there's more. Okay. This does not kill Murktide currently. I think after getting double Sinkhold, we can scoop that up. But what do I like here? Pyroblast is great. Supreme Verdict is great. Is it Staticasters probably playable versus the Bowmasters? Don't think I want to go the Magus route. Comet is playable. Hullbreacher is playable. I guess what's bad? Slower stuff. Things that aren't removal spells. Spell Snare, not the... Well, there's Bowmasters. But it's mostly Bowmasters. You know, you're not going to use this to pay for a Daze, you know? I think I'm going to have other things more efficient than Dress Down. Maybe I don't need to be a Force of Will deck. Force of Will's getting dazed, and equivalent is not the best. Force of Negation even good? Maybe? Can do something like this, just get an extra blocking body and an extra removal spell in. I could Fluster. Fluster is probably better than Force of Negation. Maybe Comet is expensive, and Counterspell is slow. Leaves me a touch light versus Murktide in particular. I guess this is fine. Playing around Stifle makes the game a little awkward in that I kind of commit a color of mana immediately, and I don't have the flexibility to just hold up something like this. Sure. Yeah, that's fine. So I have an Izzet Snapcaster here. I think I'm just going to attempt to ping this naturally next turn and hope it doesn't flip. If it does flip, I'll take 3 and then do this. White, red is a thing, though. Maybe I ignore Izzet Snapcaster, save that for later, and just work towards turn 4 Supreme Verdict. Having to keep Stifle in mind is like definitely frustrating here. Let's not knock myself off a color. I think I will hold Spell Pierce up for this turn. Ooh. Alright, we might get to try. 17. Sure. Do this past turn. Kind of want to march this, because I can march with Spell Pierce back up. So let's try to fight over this first creature. Nice, so we are playing around that. Ponder's fine. I will probably like aggressively trade a Spell Pierce for a card, given the opportunity to do so. This is all interesting. I think I'm just going to pass the turn. I have 3 different flash things that I can play at my opponent's end step to then attempt to untap with reasonable amounts of mana. I don't care about this card very much, so I think I am just going to play it and try to become the beatdown. And then hopefully I draw a land so that I can Izzet Snapcaster mid-combat around a daze, which would be cool. Yeah, I don't care about this exchange. Sure. Stifle's a thing. Playing this directly into Bowmasters is a little awkward. I think I'm just going to pass turn. We'll do things at my opponent's end step as much as possible here. Trying to stay on the basics is weird because I want blue and white. I want blue so I can play a blue card while still having white mana available. Yep. I don't know if I said that right. I want to be able to Spell Pierce while playing other cards is the gist of what I was just getting at there. This is also a wizard, by the way. It is good tech. But it can be hit by like Rebs and blue blasts and stuff. Yeah, that's fine. Opponent can take their draw. Ending's fine. Very so awkward versus Bowmasters. I think I just have to play so patiently here and hope that my opponent eventually starts using resources. Sure, that's fine. Sure. Patience. Sure. I don't mind this. Let's just ending that out of there. I think pass turn. We are just doing a lot of draw go here. I am now considering end of turn Flame of Anor and then just follow up with Supreme Verdict. But like hardcast Force of Will is a thing right now. Yeah, I think we're chilling. Hey, that's not bad. Like if I cast, the flame cares about like when you cast it, not when it resolves, which is kind of nice. Yeah, so let's just keep doing Jeskai flash things and attempt to attack with a 3/2. We would love to just force a Bowmaster out. Yeah, that's fine. Surgical Extraction on Prismatic Ending. There's only one of those left in my deck. That's fine. I guess it's relevant for my Snapcaster mages, though. Now my opponent knows about all my stuff. Not sure how much that matters. We're chilling. If I just kind of draw this out, I can wait to make some big moves when Underground Sea is potentially tapped. Or I can use a bunch of this stuff in my hand as bait to just do objectively more powerful things like resolve a Forth Eorlingas. I don't need to cast it. Alright, cool. So my opponent is going to make the first move here. This is fine. That can resolve. I'll take a little bit of damage. I'll just take 2 more and then maybe think about Supreme Verdicting that creature away, or otherwise casting Flame to kill it. I think I'll cast the Flame. Opponent can fight over this if they want. They can't fight over a Supreme Verdict later. I don't mind taking 1 damage for a while. Now I think I'm okay firing off a Teferi. It won't be the best in the face of a Bowmasters. And there, like, very reasonably could be a second. And there is. That's fine. We will Supreme Verdict that second one next turn and be okay with this. The whole point of this is to plus this to 5 here to just make sure that I can do stuff reasonably next turn. And while I can't be stifled, I have another plains in here. I'm going to grab that. Do I want to grab the other island? Let's grab the other island. All right, cool. So we've set this up so that I can verdict the board while still having a Teferi, and then like flash from things like Bowmasters matters a lot less. That's fine. Yeah, my opponent is down to 2 cards. Like, they have a lot of mana. Another Bowmasters? Sure. So that can hit Teferi. This brings this up to 4. My opponent can attack and kill the Teferi, and then I just verdict away both of these Bowmasters, and we can like Ponder and Lorien Revealed our way out of it from there. All right, fantastic. They do get a second card from this redraw. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4 largely seems fine. I know that I can't be Bowmastered off of this draw here. Oh, nice. So let's go bam, bam, bam. No shuffle. I think pass turn, upkeep, fetch. The stifles maybe aren't even in the deck anymore. I'll just fetch at end step. Resolves. Oh, that's a lot of land. Oh, yeah, so we'll just do an end of turn fetch. Oh, I do have yet another island. Did not realize that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3. I can't Lorien Revealed and Supreme Verdict. I kind of just want a Lorien Revealed with Spell Pierce backup. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take maybe 3 damage to wait a turn on this. This is fine as long as this last card isn't Bowmasters, but we've already seen multiple Bowmasters. Yeah, so I can't Spell Pierce that. I did not build this with a Mystic Sanctuary because we are Prismatic Ending and Blood Moon based. Delver does not flip, and my opponent drew the card, which probably means that this is another threat. The hope is that they play it out and I can just verdict it. Yeah, this is a very good 2-for-1 for us. Yup. We don't get to fuck around with this one, though. We absolutely do not get to wait a turn and cast the Lorien Revealed now and just like gamble on drawing Swords to Plowshares. Where are my copies of Forth Eorlingas, though? Ooh, sure. So this is what my opponent has. Cast 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do a draw 3. Hope to hit a Swords to Plowshares. I don't. Forth Eorlingas might just be lethal next turn. I don't like any of that. Shuffle. Flame is 5 damage? Flame is 5 damage. So, yeah. Like a plateau. 5 damage. And next turn, we will cast Forth Eorlingas for a gajillion D. And my opponent will die. I guess they could make it a gajillion D -2. We're out of basics. 3 islands, 1 mountain, 2 plains. So no point in even playing this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, is it Force of Will? Let's tap this differently, though. Let's go red-white and leave up blue-white afterwards, I think. This does not go for the kill immediately, but this should be good enough. We do, unfortunately, evenly trade with Force of Will. And now I will Ponder. Oh, we've got another one. Nice. I didn't leave up Spell Pierce, but that's not too likely to matter. We'll call it a turn. I guess I technically should leave this on top if I'm not fetching. Or maybe I should have just taken 1 point of damage to clear the other Spell Pierce, which is, like, not the best. Yeah, sure. Yep. If I leave up double blue, I can just beat a Force of Will here. X equals 3 is still pretty gross. 1 Force of Will, 2 Force of Wills. Yeah, X equals 3 is fine. Yeah. Spell Pierce it. And then Spell Pierce it again. And my opponent is willing to concede. I am low on clock. I played that game very patiently, which largely felt right. But we did not successfully leave a wizard in play to get any Flame of Anor card advantage, and Bowmasters is still spooky. Maybe one actual factual counterspell is fine. Go down one flame. Flame is like, maybe I play another Comet over the other flame too. Like, that game went long enough that I was just looking for hard win conditions. Stifle is horrifying. I think the hand is a keep, though. I'm going to be a little more conscious about F6ing my opponent's turns, which gives up some information, but otherwise is probably pretty good. Ooh. So I can fetch now, get maybe Mountain, Pyroblast, and work towards white mana later. Get it? Cool. I don't really want this to be white mana, but I also really do not want to be wastelanded. I can maybe flash kill this in combat if it doesn't randomly flip. Let's plan on doing that with my mana. Yeah, it does not flip, which is great. Some things like Bowmasters are a little bit of a pain in the butt here. We're getting blasted. That's fine. I'll take one. So are we just doing that same thing again and holding off on getting the white mana? I think so. We are hoping for no flip. Flips to Force of Negation. So my instant speed removal is better than my sorcery speed stuff now. I'm at 15. We'll play a flash threat. It is sure not countering abilities. All right, so I am going to go ahead and crash on in. We successfully get in for the damage. Force of Negation plus Wasteland is really good against everything that I have going on right now. I think I have to just play into it, though. I think this has to be me casting a spell. Since I have 2 Teferis, I'm going to offer one of the 2 Teferis up as a sacrifice. And just be good with potentially taking the force out of my opponent's hand. I need to find like a cantrip for other white mana or naturally draw white mana. Otherwise, I'm out of this one very quickly, especially if my opponent plays a follow-up threat. I'm not on track to Supreme Verdict. Oof. And that is why I said the exact thing that I said. It's a non-white fetch. That's a kick in the teeth. Oh no. So I don't have another white source that a blue fetch land can fetch, which is a problem. So we can send this Murktide Regent out of play while my opponent can't like stifle or whatever. Oh no, I don't have more white mana there. Fuck. Oh, that's bad. Send it. Yeah. We get to Fog the Delver for a turn while Teferi gets beaten down. Oh, JK, I'm gonna get Bowmastered. Oh shit, it's Molten Collapse instead. Sure. Ah! Fuck, okay. Wasteland doing Wasteland things here. I have an out in hand. Whether or not I can utilize it is an entirely different thing. 6. Oh, fuck. That can be Murktide now. I don't think I beat that. Yeah, it's not even a big Murktide, but... So I get white mana, hopefully. My opponent blocks this, takes 6, goes to 2. That's not lethal. I need to specifically remove Murktide Regent. So I can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but not 7. So this is the way that... Oh, I don't have multiple white! So I can't do this, take the Monarch, and go. And then like draw Swords of Plowshares, remove this, and try to weather the storm. I'm just short. Damn, I'm just short. Like a mana short in multiple different directions there. The multiple wastelands got me.
Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, and honestly, they're just the best at what they do. If you need to keep your deck lists online, this is the way to do it. They have all sorts of different viewing options. You can condense that text if you like things to be tight. You can make them visual grids. You can put them in stacks. You've got all sorts of different ways to kind of view and visualize your deck lists. And they also have some really cool functionality, like allowing you to see playtest hands and even fully playtest your decks. So check them out.
All right, we have a reasonable opening hand here that has too many non-basics for my liking, but we have a good mix of lands and spells, and this can be endgame card advantage if it ends up being in hand for that long. My opponent has mulligan to 5. We are hoping they are not fast combo. If they are fast combo, I can't really keep up. Hopefully we can keep up with that. I know what sort of stuff I am looking for now. Counter spells would be great. Let's try to find like Force of Will, Force of Negation. Ponder's okay. I'm gonna try to do better. Brainstorm is much better. We have too much mana here. I think it's important to fish for Force of Will in that spot because I could just immediately be facing down Spirit Guide into 10 power on board this turn. Or at my end step for that matter. Or in my upkeep. I think my opponent has... Oh, it's ice. Sure. We'll brainstorm in response to that. That's a thing that I probably want to do anyway. Spell Pierce is mid. I'm going to throw back a Volk and probably just a Lorien Revealed here. I guess I'm redrawing one of those. Lorien Revealed can be blue for Force of Will purposes. I think you're blue mana. I don't think I should have fetched immediately. I don't know, maybe holding up Spell Pierce for 3 mana Rhinos matters. I was planning on pondering and then I changed my mind. I think my turn was suboptimal in one way or another there. All right, we're chilling. My opponent does not have the next land drop. That's great. Perfectly happy using a mana to ponder here. Spell Snare's not great. Snapcaster's okay. I think I am going to take a Snapcaster, drop this, and pass. Snapcaster for Spell Pierce is okay. I might end up just playing Snapcaster Mage to start attacking for 2 and then turn on the other modes of this. We'll see, though. I would love to use a Spell Pierce this turn and have Snapcaster Spell Pierce available for the next turn cycle. Yeah, so this is fine. Rhinos go on the stack. Rhinos go off the stack. Hopefully. Force of Will. So Snapcaster Spell Pierce doesn't counter this next turn. I'll probably remove one with March of Otherworldly Light, and then Snapcaster March the other. I think I fight over this junking Lorien Revealed. I don't know, maybe I junk this because the red mana is a little hard right now. And then we'll just pick up a basic plains at end of turn. Super punished with that draw. I'm fine playing this out, right? Because I just go March, Snapcaster March, and I remove all of the Rhinos before my opponent has a chance to have Force of Will blue card. That sounds good. Snappy. And Snappy can trade with this body at some point. All right, get out. All right, there's the attack. I could keep this around for a turn cycle to make Flame of Anor better if I draw some mana, so I think I'm going to do that. I maybe end up taking some extra damage if my opponent ends up like firing my Snapcaster later. But the upside's pretty high. I'm not going to attack here. I guess I have Force of Will covering Violent Outburst. I will attack. 16. No Violent Outburst. The trading 2 damage back and forth favors my opponent, but this is really high upside here. Spirit Guide's fine. That is not worth a Force of Will. Neat. Okay, now that I have another wizard, I'll just hold Snapcaster back to trade. I also can potentially like stop myself from getting wastelanded. Let's trade with, I guess, Spirit Guide. My opponent ends up shuffling their deck back in or something. I think that's the one that I would like them to redraw. Sure. 10. All right, so now do I do this? This is so good, though. Like stopping Wasteland, stopping a Cascade trigger. I think I wait. Swords is great. I'm perfectly happy with this as a draw. I think we will just go ahead and Swords this. I don't want to take more incidental damage if I don't have to. That sat on the stack longer than it should have. I suspect that my opponent has a counter spell. Elvish Spirit Guide, eh? Yeah, you got it. We're just in a holding pattern here. Not having the red mana definitely sucks. I will die on my basic lands are a good hill, though. I am willing to take 1, maybe 2 more hits from this before I just trade this. This card's really powerful. Yeah, so now we can just counter a triggered ability with this. Strong. They know to Cascade. This would be a great time to draw the red mana. That is not quite what I said. All right. If you wonder why people aren't playing Flame of Anor, maybe this has something to do with it. The needing to have the wizard body in play is like super relevant versus these small bodies right now. The mana is an unfortunate side effect of red being our tertiary color. Awkward. This is lethal damage over the course of 2 turns. I think I need to Force of Will this. I will do it by hard casting the Force of Will. We don't have to worry about days in this matchup. But this is not how I conceptually want to be using my Force of Wills. Sure. We're totally fine if I draw a red land. I think. Losing the wizard kind of sucks because now I can't just kill both of these at the same time. Ugh. All right. So we are in this very unfortunate position where I am dead to Elvish Spirit Guide next turn, and if my opponent top decks something else, I'm just dead to it because they can just wasteland me off of Supreme Verdict, which would be my out to Elvish Spirit Guide plus any other threat. Okay. Their upkeep, Snapcaster Swords, leave the extra body in play. That way I'm not... I guess I'm already dead to Fire Ice. Yeah. Let's get this out of the way. So there's probably 3 copies of Footfalls in the deck. There could be something like Endurance that can loop them. I'm not, I guess, technically dead to this. I have outs, but I need some very specific things to happen. Well, there's my red mana. So I'm not dead to this if things go perfectly. So we need to... I can't destroy target artifact here. The trample is rough. I need to 5 damage a creature, draw 2, and then hit Human Wizard. Do I need to hit the bottom one? I need to hit the bottom one, even though that is not displayed. Okay. Target player draws cards. 5 damage. No, not that land. All right. White removal spell, please. White removal spell, please. F. I've already made my land drop because this was my land drop, so I now can't brainstorm to do another thing. The trample kills me. Yeah, we just, like, it is turn 12 and I never drew red mana until turn 12. The game's pretty comfortable if we do. Okay. How am I approaching this matchup? Supreme Verdict's great. Magus is interesting. Pyro is okay. Comet is maybe playable if things get a little weird. Not the most interested in Dress Down. I am very much not interested in Spell. And this card, Tidebinder and Teferi are conceptually very good. I need some amount of single target removal. This is the first thing to come in. I think I want these. I would prefer to stop the rhinos on the stack, but a lot of times I'm just not going to do that. I don't know. White spell, Snapcaster, white spell is a real plan here. I'm not sure what to get rid of. Maybe this game goes long enough that Spell Pierce is bad, but Spell Pierce is really good at slowing down the turn 3 rhino lines. Maybe I'll go down 1 flame. I don't think I'm ending up with these. Pyroblast is nice versus some of the things like Murktide Regent that juke what's going on, but they don't actually stop the green spells that matter. This is an unexciting but reasonable hand. So we get all 3 of our basics this game, which is a pretty big deal. My opponent is on 5 cards here, which I am very happy to see. We are probably just playing some form of draw go for a little while here. I don't think I'm pondering this turn because I want to play this game around Wasteland, and I don't want to get got by just Spirit Guide into Rhinos. I think I just always want to have this Spell Pierce up while it is in my hand. And preferably while it's in my graveyard, honestly. Opponent's not in black, so we don't have to worry about getting got by something like Bowmasters here. And they really can't play Bowmasters with Shardless Agent into Rhinos as their primary plan. So we'll go ahead and chill. Are we doing the thing? I maybe cast 1 Ponder here. I think that's okay. More counter magic is kind of the ideal. Yeah, no, these cards are fine. Let's take a Force of Will now and a Ponder next turn. And it seems like we are getting all the time in the world to set up, which is fantastic. I could start attacking with a Snapcaster Mage, but given that my opponent's resources are constrained, I think I'm just okay with where things stand. I'm thinking about whether or not I want to fetch immediately. I think no. I think let's just do this. Teferi is great. I am happy enough drawing that immediately. I think I don't play it this turn, though. I think I just pass the turn. And I play it when I can Teferi with Spell Pierce and Force backup. That way I am very unlikely to lose a fight in response to the Teferi. I think it's just too easy for me to get got by Violent Outburst, Spirit Guide, backed by Force of Will or something. And it's just so free to Spell Pierce right now. Oh, yeah, you can draw your card. That's fine. It may put me in a weird spot where I have to... I guess I'm already vulnerable to Wasteland. Fetching like another Volk or whatever doesn't matter too much. I guess assuming I have another Volk. Oh, I have 1 Volk. I could get Tundra. Alright, we are on Suspend. That's fine. So I think I want this to be white mana. And we're now going to go ahead and make our move. This stops my opponent from casting. Yeah, sure, that's fine. All that matters here is that this is blue. I think I'll pick up a Tundra. Anyway, this stops them from casting spells at speeds other than sorcery speeds, which is a really big deal for their entire deck. We will just go ahead and plus keep the loyalty of this high. I have Force of Will available for something that takes the Teferi out of play. I have Swords to Plowshares for fair threats like Murktide Regent, and my swords are currently uncounterable, which is great. Oh wow, nothing from the opponent here. So we'll go ahead and just ponder. Yeah, honestly, no shuffle. Plus this. I think we are fine going for this here. A Brazen Borrower could bounce it, but I could just counter that. Oh, no, I guess I can't Brazen Borrower it. That's a bad example, right? That's still a spell. It's not a channel. All right, my opponent is going to throw in the towel there. They are low on time, not dangerously low or anything, but they are low on time. We largely just won that one because they mulled to Oblivion. So, do I want to still flame? On the draw, I could play Pyroblast to get better at fighting over mystical disputes. It also makes me not very reliant on the white mana, which I guess matters. Makes me a little reliant on just finding Forth Eorlingas. Maybe I need to board in the Comet if I'm doing this. I don't know, the Comet doesn't line up super well versus Rhinos. I'm going to assume that my cantrips can hold this hand together in some capacity. I have an answer to a set of Rhinos. I have 2 of the 4 lands necessary for that. I don't think this is worth mulliganing. Sometimes like my mana gets awkward and I can't cast the Supreme Verdict, or I get wastelanded off of something. It doesn't feel like this is a mulligan to me though. Spend Rhinos? The Spend Rhinos is totally fine. That's not really what I want right now. So we're Ponder, we're looking for lands and counter spells. That's a counter spell. It almost feels like the lands are just more important because Fluster isn't held up right now. I'm going to be pickier than that. That's worse than the Fluster by a lot. But it also means that I have a live draw at more lands next turn, and I don't have to brainstorm through a dead card or two. The scary timeline is opponent making Rhinos this turn, and I miss a land drop. That's the thing that potentially beats me. Fluster's good. My mana, on the other hand, is not great. I'll go ahead and pass the turn here so that I have Fluster up or Rhinos off of Violent Outburst. Otherwise, the game plan is Brainstorm end of turn, looking for more land. Casting this Brainstorm is so incredibly awkward right now. I hate it. I hate it, hate it, hate it. I think I have to do it, but I hate it. Okay, there is another land. That's good. Forth Eorlingas can go back. And a Pyroblast, maybe? Let's set a stop for my upkeep, and I will fetch in my upkeep. We're going for white and blue mana here. If I'm not worried about white, I could just get all my colors. I think I'm just going to treat the Pyroblast as a temporarily dead card, though, and actively work towards Supreme Verdict. Okay, cool. More green mana. Not red, which is weird. I don't mind that draw. Does this mean Endurance? I can just Swords that and move on. Sure. I imagine my opponent nukes my graveyard. I am a known Snapcaster Mage deck. No, they don't. I think I'll let my opponent untap. I don't know. Would I be happy if they Force of Negation right now? Probably. Let's go ahead and do this. We're just trying to buy time to get to Supreme Verdict and maybe evenly trade with this. I can maybe get greedy and take some extra damage from Endurance. But I feel pretty safe right now. Another Fluster. I could Snapcaster Ponder. I don't think I'm going to do that. I might Snapcaster Brainstorm at the end of my opponent's turn. Crashing Footfalls. So I could Snapcaster Brainstorm in response to this, and then Fluster. I can't Snapcaster Brainstorm and then Fluster. I think I'm gonna not having the next land drop and having to like really consider Wasteland is rough. I think I just want a Force of Negation and pitch a Fluster despite the fact that I have Supreme Verdict. I would be fine if my opponent countered on top of this Mystical Dispute, I think. Yeah, I think I'm okay with that. So if my opponent counters on top of this with like another Mystical Dispute or Force of Will or whatever, sure. Like, I think I'm okay with that. I draw any land, I just Supreme Verdict, and if I don't, I start just like Snapcaster Sword stuff. Alright, there's a cycle, so they have access to red mana now. Oh, it's a Spirit Guide. This is like the greatest Supreme Verdict of all time, assuming I hit a land drop. If I don't hit a land drop, I take a shit ton of damage. Land. Almost. I can't really take 16, because then I can't fetch to play Supreme Verdict. I think this is just sorcery speed, Snapcaster Swords. I'll take 12, go to 5, and I'm probably stable from there, assuming that that works. I'm thinking about whether or not I block, because it's just basically Supreme Verdict or I'm dead, right? I take 12, go to 5. Yeah, I think I will save the 1 point of life. Sure. Land. Unless this Brainstorm is like perfect, I'm dead. It was pretty much like perfect. However, I am not drawing lands. So, get rid of 1. And I'm just going to cast these on my turn. I guess I can cast the next one on my opponent's turn. It doesn't matter. So I'll upkeep Swords. This attack will put me to 2. And then I Snapcaster Prismatic Ending this Rhino token. That's in theory fine. I don't think I can let that resolve. Force Pitch Fluster. Go to 1. Life's bad. I'm not dead, but life's bad. I know my next turn is a brick. Get out, Rhino. My opponent is also in danger of timing out, but I think this game will resolve itself before my opponent times out. Another Lorien revealed off the top. That's brutal. So now things like Fire Ice also will just kill me. My Pyroblast is not castable because I've been playing around Wasteland. A threat like Murktide Regent could potentially get me. For sure. No Surveil Land or anything fancy. Okay. We have weathered the current turn cycle. I need to ponder. I don't exactly know what I'm looking for. Like, I have multiple things that I need. That resolves. I am not going to attack. I'm going to play around an Endurance attacking in and killing me. Alright, I am happy to just see land drops here. This is incredibly good if it resolves. This is so much breathing room. Alright, Force of Will. This turn they don't have Endurance up, so an attack does make sense. Send it. 23. Opponent is in real danger of timing out. Remember when I absorbed 1 point of damage earlier with the Snapcaster Mage block, by the way? Just saying. Just saying. Ooh. Run it back. No. Force of Will. So same as last turn. I think attack makes sense this time. I need any non-fetch land. Ooh, opponent is flooding out. Ooh. Is this just the deck thinning? That is not castable. It's a rather good card, but it is not castable. That is a Lorien revealed that I cannot Pyroblast because it's turn 13 and I don't have red mana. I'm going to become the Joker. I think at this point I time out my opponent. I don't think they can win. Spirit Guide is acceptable. Okay. If I Supreme Verdict, can I lose? Maybe not. Send it. I guess it was technically correct to attack in for 2 there. Spirit Guide is fine. I guess they could have Fire Iced me directly. And we win on timeout. If the game goes on, it's possible I just win. Like, I draw a red source, Forth Eorlingas, and then kind of massively took over the game. But my opponent does have 3 cards in hand now, so I don't know. All right, I have a reasonable opening hand here. I probably can't let whatever is about to go into the graveyard get into the graveyard. I think this is Force of Will pitching Lorien revealed. And we'll see exactly how far down the unfair spectrum my opponent's deck is. I'm going to go Island here. It's possible there are Wastelands in my opponent's deck, and I do want to respect them. Spellsnare's mid. Spellsnare can hit Animate Dead. Can hit Bowmasters if my opponent is kind of on that hybrid plan. I think I am just going to accept next land drop plus a mid counter spell. That gets stuff into graveyard. It looks like my opponent is doing like blue dredge rather than a reanimator deck of some kind. Yeah. We're gonna get mode over here. So these slow blue dredge decks absolutely tear apart blue decks that look like mine. My spell Snare is bad. Not at 3 mana for using this on Cephalid Coliseum. I guess that means we're brainstorming and trying to improve this. Snare goes back. This goes back. I'm just frankly not ready for it yet. This fetch land is awkward here. Like, this is also going to be blue mana. And Brainstorm. Force of Negation might help things from going as wrong as possible. This situation feels terrible, though. Okay. Not a lot of dredgers there. That's the good news. Absolutely not. This dredges stinkweed, and then that spirals into other stuff. I think I'm going to Force of Negation, pitch my Brainstorm, try to keep this around for this next turn. If it doesn't happen just right now, which I think it will. It doesn't. Fuck. Okay, it's the Faithless Looting instead. Yeah, you got it. Multiple Narcomoebas, multiple Bridges, and Poxwalkers, and Anger as well. So my opponent Cabal Therapies me, brings back Poxwalkers. Cabal Therapies the Poxwalkers, has what, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10. Oh, they don't have a mountain. It's not hasty? Does that matter? 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I think I am going to concede and hide this. This can potentially get my opponent. And if memory serves, I don't have a lot of graveyard hate. Okay. What to do? Surgical, obviously. Supreme Verdict is fine. Flusters are fine. My opponent just replaces draws with Dredge, so Hullbreacher is often not going to do the cool things that I want it to do. These things are like playable but not exciting. Rest Down is pretty mid. Spell Snare is actively bad. Flame is actively bad. That gets me these 5. That feels about right. I could Pyroblast as well. Is doing this for Cephalid Coliseum reasonable? It's a horrifying card. Might be reasonable. I could do this as well, I guess. That's another way to attack Cephalid Coliseum. Putting that in my deck makes my Supreme Verdicts, which I want to lean on, a little more awkward. Maybe I can go down the sorcery speed removal. Pierce to get me out of the initial turns, paired with Force of Negation. Try to cheese the game with Magus. He is reasonable. I don't think I play Flooded Strand on 1. I don't think I want to lock myself into certain lands yet. Yep. Sure. That's great for me. So let's go land drop pass. This guarantees my 3rd land drop, and I can pitch to Fairy to Force of Negation. And I have Spell Pierce as well for something like a Otherworldly Journey, Otherworldly Gaze. There it is. I'm kind of assuming that's what this is going to be. It's awkward that I can't just Force of Negation this here, like cleanly. The free clause only happens if it's not your turn. Okay. So this gets basic white. This gets basic blue. And I think I'm just jamming here. I think I want this Cephalid Coliseum to never activate. Yes. And the hope is that this doesn't just absolutely fill the graveyard with the worst monsters possible. That was very lucky. That was, in fact, no dredgers. Ooh, basic island. I was not expecting that. It's possible. Some bounce spell type things are around. I think we're going for blood here. I think I just want to kind of go for broke. Yes. Narcomoeba is fine. That does not trade with Magus of the Moon. There is a Stinkweed Imp in graveyard now. So things are going to get a little weird. Swords is great. So I will happily Force of Negation that. My opponent can attack with Narcomoeba, become the Monarch Dredge once at end of turn. And I am just going to continue to make tokens, and I am going to hope to kill them. Like, the plan is not stop the stuff from their graveyard. Like, Magus of the Moon is just like a tempo card here. No bridges in graveyard, which is great. Yeah, I think we're just doing this thing. I don't think I'm trying to remove my opponent's creatures right now. Send it. And notably, these trample. My opponent's at 2. I'll draw an extra card at end of turn. Now, it is possible for my opponent to go ham here. They have a bridge now. That's a start. Flashback Faithless Looting. I gave them the red. Off Magus. There's a bunch of bridges in there. This could get scary. So Cabal Therapy creates some bodies. I don't imagine that they hit March with their first one of these. They have a second Cabal Therapy, so they can hit it with the second one. Oh, they're going at themselves. Sure. So I'll get hit for 1, so my opponent can become the Monarch. And then they'll second main phase Cabal Therapy me. Yeah. Lightning Bolt. And now they get to Dredge again. Oh, finding another Narcomoeba is actually, like, super relevant. So I can remove 3 bodies. If I march a zombie, there's 5 zombies. My opponent can block and trade with everything. I don't know exactly what I'm doing here. Does Forth Eorlingas do it? 1 point of damage short, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, I can play land drop and Forth. Probably just plan on killing my opponent next turn with Forth. Like, I put Forth on top of my library. I guess I can't play multiple removal spells easily. Yeah, let's put Forth Eorlingas on top of my library to draw that next turn. Let's march the Narcomoeba out of the way, and I'll attempt to swing for lethal next turn. This leaves my opponent as the Monarch, which is, like, not the best thing in the world. No, I don't want you hitting that sort of stuff. Yeah, the Narcomoeba very specifically is rough. Oh, maybe I should have considered attacking. If I attack and trade with at least 1 zombie token, then I take the Bridge from Belows out of graveyards. Oh, I fucked that up. Yeah. Yeah, I messed that up. Sure. My opponent's creatures are hasty due to anger that's in there now. They name swords and hit swords. Am I going to be dead to this? Oh, there's another one. Oh, it's the Dread return. Yeah, I think I punted this one by not attacking in with at least 1 creature to generate blocks for Bridge from Belows. Yeah, this was winnable. Alright, I'll let my opponent cast a couple more spells, and they can absolutely send in all of this damage. No blocks. I'll take it on the nose. They have overkill by a lot, and I want to see what the number is. 54. GG's. Alright. I have kind of a mediocre hand here. I think I am just going to fetch and play around an initial Stifle here. Just grab a Plains and pass. So intention is to cycle this into Island and then be good against fair stuff. I might be playing too scared, and then my opponent just, like, turn 1 Dark Rituals and I can't Brainstorm in response. Yeah, that's fine. Alright, I lose the Brainstorm. See if we get the immediate reanimate. We do. Oh, I thought I was going to lose one of the 2 Lorien revealed. I am happy enough with this outcome. Not super excited to see that. Alright, take some damage. We're mostly looking to dodge an immediate follow-up threat, you know, a Stalker or a Murktide Regent that comes down quickly and puts additional pressure on us would be pretty bad. The worst case scenario, though, is just like an Animate Dead on an Archon of Cruelty or whatever. I'm going to try to keep this as a spell. While Bowmasters doesn't counter this, I'm probably going to just Brainstorm. I'm fine committing the Prismatic Vista ahead of time to play around potential Spell Pierce type cards. Ooh, baby. I like that a lot. Not exactly sure how to play the rest of this turn. I think I put the land on top of my deck. Swords the Grief. And I think I'll Ponder? Slightly less sure on that. Awkward timing. I don't think I'm ready for this stuff yet. Like, I don't think I am in win the game mode. All right, well, Ponder came back. Just like a little rough to Entomb, yeah. I'm kind of fishing for Force of Will off the Ponder shuffle because, like, Entomb into Animate Dead type stuff is very scary. The Merfolk is something that I could keep around. It could potentially counter an Animate Dead trigger, but it doesn't do anything in this turn cycle. And, like, this turn cycle is the scariest turn cycle of the game, I think. Yeah. So the Atraxa is answerable via swords. It's if, like, Grief or Force of Will or whatever starts getting involved. And it does. So if I don't Ponder and I hold up Swords to Plowshares, I can instead Swords this Atraxa while the trigger's on the stack. It leaves my opponent with a bunch of good resources, though. All right. Swamp Ponder, which means no reanimate. Force of Will, Orcish Bowmasters. So they've got this plus 2 unknowns. That's not bad, honestly. Attempt Swords. Swords gets forced. Exiling the Ponder that we know about. That all resolves. I will Island Cycle here. I can get Plateau to also have access. Nope, Island Cycle, JK. Get Tundra. Play Tundra. Swords this around days. Cool. I know my opponent has Bowmasters, so I will cast this Ponder now and potentially look for something that beats Bowmasters. Awkward, but okay. Oh, I can't undo that to take the fetch land. Oops. Yeah, it should have been fetch, so I don't draw the other land that's below this. Sure. Oh, am I going to get reanimated on? I would not like to get reanimated on. Yeah, okay. So, this is much worse against the 5/5 body than I would like it to be. But I think this is what I do. This is dazeable. We're going to throw away a token here to draw a card. It should be a real draw and not the land that's on top of my deck, but I messed up. And we have to live with that. Alright, so we redraw the Tarn. The Monarch is not the best versus known Bowmasters. That's, I guess, assuming that I get the Monarch back, because sometimes I won't. The dream is kind of attack and then Supreme Verdict, clear Bowmasters, and Troll at the same time. But I don't think my opponent is going to play in that way. So their Monarch. And Force of Negation. Not doing a ton. I need to attack with both of these if I want to take the Monarch back. Yeah. So my opponent will ping one and block it with the Orc to trade with that body. And then at end of turn, they're going to get another Bowmaster trigger from me drawing the card from Monarch. Sure. Could really use a Swords. 5? Is that the way we're doing this? If I kill this, it like can just pop right back out of the graveyard. I think I just have to do it though. Like this is otherwise just so much damage. But I am not on the path to victory right now. I'm at the lower life total. I'm at the worst position in regards to Monarch. I have fewer cards. My opponent has better top decks than I do, largely. And my cantrips are punished by their Bowmasters. Life's bad. Fetch to clear. I'm fine seeing that. I basically lose the game when this token disappears, or probably when another troll or equivalent size creature gets into play. I can't overstate enough how bad my wrong ordering of the Ponder was. Like if I randomly draw something like a Swords to Plowshares, I'm in so much of a better position. I'm at 7. My opponent gets the first card draw. Thanks, Force of Negation. You're a real pal right now. I need this to connect. It does. The bad thing here is that, like, my draws are significantly less good than my opponent's draws. I'm under so much pressure. Forth Eorlingas is not the best currently. It's not the worst either. I probably hyper-aggressively Force of Negation anything I can get my hands on. I just need to use my mana more so than anything else here. At some point, my opponent can consider leaving back the Orc token. Like, it will trade with or wall my Human Knight. I don't know what their hand looks like to know whether or not that's a good idea. In blocks? What are we doing in blocks with black mana? Another bow? That sure doesn't eat Force of Negation. Yeah? So I go to 1, meaning that Supreme Verdict isn't an out right now. I can't fetch, get Tundra, and then cast it. So I think I'm just done. Can't fetch. I can Snapcaster and Swords, or Snapcaster and Prismatic Ending, and stay alive. But it's sort of a miserable existence, where my opponent is the Monarch. A counterspell here also just kills me. I'll go out on my own terms. Next game. So I guess question 1, is my opponent going to keep the big unfair stuff in against me? It really varies from player to player. I guess I don't need to think about it that much because I just have 2 surgicals as the only graveyard hate that I'm going to do. I like removal. I think I am fine with Pyroblasts. I think I am fine with Flusters. I think Hull Breacher, Magus of the Moon fall into a tier 2 of cards that I'm not interested in. I don't know about that. There's really high upside. So many of my cards just like only answer one aspect of the deck. I don't think I want to be 2 for 1ing myself versus Grief. The whole Flame of Anor plan is just like not the best versus Bowmasters. Kills Troll, that's worth something. I like the white exile-based removal. I go down more pitch counters. We get better versus Bowmasters. I have insurance versus graveyards. I don't quite get all of this. I probably start looking at like some number of flames and Teferis. Neither one is super good versus Bowmasters. Teferi is better versus the giant monsters. Keep 1 flame as a bit of endgame engine. I'm really win condition light here. Maybe I need Comet as well. And I go down like a situational Spell Pierce. I'm not confident about my board plan. I guess blue, white, red in some combination. Let's just do this and pass. Oh, my opponent mulliganed. We take those. I don't think I am flustering that. Snapcaster is a reasonable draw that's not doing a lot right now, but probably does good stuff in the future. All right, cool. The hope is that my opponent doesn't do anything too scary and I just get to continue to make land drops and my opponent makes the first move that I then counter. I don't want to mess around with that. But that's my answer to whether or not my opponent kept in the graveyard package. There's a follow-up fetch. Something else got in the graveyard. But this is significantly less scary, right? Like this, I can just cleanly Swords to Plowshares away. That's not an actual problem. Surveil land. Another look at something unfair, or otherwise just potential selection. Anime Dead can resolve, that's totally fine. We'll grab a Plains end of turn. Just establish good mana. Fantastic. So now do we go for it? Do I just want to become the pretty princess in the Orcish Bowmasters world with 1 token? I'm not really sure that I feel great about that. I guess if I'm not doing it though, like, why is this card in my deck? Yeah. Let's do this for X equals 1 to play around days. Alright. And we will see whether or not becoming the Monarch is actively a good thing here. This doesn't deal with the cards that matter right now. Like things like Hardcast, Grief, and Bowmasters are the things that matter. Like losing my Snapcaster is kind of rough. I legit think that I am not attacking. Like I am just going to hold back, just defensive line, have Snapcaster Fluster, Snapcaster Swords, and just draw my cards. So Snapcaster resolves. Then I will cast a Snapcaster. The funny thing is that if this gets swordsed, yeah, this is fine. So sort of funnily, since my opponent forces this and not the Swords to Plowshares, I get to just Snapcaster again. I am not saying that my opponent misplayed, because I don't really know that that's true. But this is pretty brutal. Unless the last card is Daze, in which case I get got instead. I don't think it is worth using the Surgical to look and see. Last card was not Daze, so the Orcish Bowmaster trigger produces a creature, but does not actually kill this, so I ended up saving a point of life there. Now I'm not soft to 1 removal spell into attack. Reanimate Snapcaster Mage, with the idea being that they can then... they can like Ponder or Entomb afterwards. I'll take that I'll take this trade. Yeah. Not the way I was expecting to use that card. We'll take this one out. I would like to draw the next Snapcaster Mage, though. That was just a counterspell. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is 6. That's such a good draw. Fetch. At this point, non-basics are probably fine. So now I can Lorien Revealed with Swords to Plowshares available for if my opponent's last card is exactly Orcish Bowmasters. And my opponent throws in the towel. That's probably a good point to concede. They're down on time. They're not in scary mode yet, but it might have taken me another 4 minutes to actually win that game. So my opponent kept in the Entomb package for the large creatures. In respect of things like Atraxa, I maybe want to have some number of Force of Negations or Force of Wills. My dress downs are a little worse on the draw because it's harder for me to line that up appropriately versus an Animate Dead. Just turn 1 Entombs, turn 2 go, dress down isn't live. Tishana's Tidebinder kind of runs into the same problem. All right, that's out. Let's go Force of Will, I guess. How many of those do I want? I guess against my opponent's Bowmasters, like, it's hard for me to line this up properly. Maybe I do this. This is more castable than this, but this helps with some mid-game stuff like Murktide Regent, Hardcast Grief. Absolutely not. This does not have mana. The second one's a clunker. I have access to 2 of my 3 colors. It is in an awkward way. I think I am keeping it. It's sort of hard for me to utilize my cards. I think I'm getting rid of the Force of Will with the hope of Spell Piercing a play on turn 2 and having Surgical to back it up. The universe has a sense of humor. Don't Entomb. That's fine. Getting Underground Sea. So I have the Animate Dead, Reanimate stuff temporarily on lockdown. Cool. Let's extract. Yeah. I guess I probably care about this enough to take a screenshot. So, opponent has a reasonable, fair mid-range plan, a Brainstorm that's really good, and an Archon of Cruelty that's dead. Opponent has 3 Wastelands in their deck. They have none of them right now. I think I am going to risk Tundra here. I think the flexibility matters a lot. Because I want to be able to Spell Pierce the Brainstorm, but I also want to be able to Swords to Plowshares a Doughty Voidwalker or Bowmasters if they are played out. Yeah, that's fine. We'll Swords that. End of turn, we'll Swords, most of my opponent's hand, and things do resolve properly. So, red, white, 1, become Monarch, draw cards, Force of Will, Bowmasters, go from there. Surgical it on the way back down, maybe, if opponent reanimates. 1 unknown card could be one of the 2 dazes or one of the forces. It is one of the dazes. So now do I force to protect this? I think that is worth it despite the awkwardness. Like, I think I am in a bad spot and I'm willing to take the risk. 21. I am the pretty princess. I could use some gas here. That is not gas. My Surgical is currently dead. The Bowmasters is a problem. That helps, actually. So we can go land drop, play Teferi. This forces action on the Bowmasters immediately. Yeah. Opponent puts the damage on my face. I resolve this. As a tempo play, I will bounce the Bowmaster out of my opponent's hand. Pyroblast is not what I am looking for. I am not attacking. I am hoping to draw something that deals with Bowmasters. Holy shit, that is literally it. Yes. So the way that I see this turn working is that my opponent Bowmasters. I can't reasonably counter that. I need to hold up Spell Snare. I'm going to assume that this Archon is gone. I think these cards are both good. There is 1 Daze in the deck. Like, let the record show that I am aware that I could Surgical Daze. I'm not going to do that because I want to be able to surgically extract Orcish Bowmasters. Extra white? Can't do that. Like this. I get punished by the 1 remaining Daze in the deck for not extracting, but then I shut off Reanimates and Animate Deads in the future by holding this. Right after Brainstorming, the Daze doesn't make a lot of sense to keep. I also, like, Teferi is in play. Never mind. I did not need to worry. Fantastic. Plus, I don't even think I'm even attacking this turn. Like, we'll just chill. Extra swords, great. This is why I wanted more white mana. But the 1 Tundra is a thing. I think I messed up. I think I'm supposed to Surgical when my opponent doesn't have priority. No? I think I just don't give my opponent that degree of selection right now. Entomb is fine. Archon in the bin. I guess I'm well off for not using Surgical. A2 life. Opponent doesn't get to counter it. So Archon's gone. There's not another Archon. They have a Ponder left. Sounds good. And the Ponder is fine. I guess they're looking for threats like Brazen Borrower, Douthie. Oh, there aren't Murktides in right now. Now that I'm looking at their deck again. That was something I expected to be there. So they kept their card, which I think is fine. I think since I'm limited on white mana, I will just go ahead and take out this Orc Army token, even though it's not objectively that good or like super worth a card. But I can't multi-spell very easily, so I think I am fine with this. We're also pretty likely to win via timeout at this point. I have Teferi plussed, so I can ponder at instant speed. That is a thing that I am allowed to do. Sure. I will ponder in response to the Orcish Bowmasters. I am probably just going to swords it. This is fine. Yeah. No shuffle. Bowmasters can resolve. Fairy's loyalty goes down a touch. And since my opponent's hellbent, I'll just do this now. Take out the Bowmasters. And that's good enough for my opponent. This league is taking forever to record. Like, the deck is doing okay, but it's slower to close games than I might like. Alright, I kept kind of a middling power hand that is fine against fair decks, and then my opponent mulliganed to 4. So I guess we're hoping to brainstorm into one of our, I think it's 2 copies of Force of Will. I'm playing this the next day, very early in the morning, in an attempt to crank out this last match before I go to work. This is maybe not so bad. 4 mana turn 1, like a Caves of Chaos Adventurer. Oh, I just can't count. Is a Goblin Rabble Master. I can answer that on turn 3 with Prismatic Ending. I think I'm fine brainstorming in response to see if I can answer it earlier. And I can. So what do I not want from this stuff? Probably this. And then I'll just redraw the next card. And I'll just take my 1. I have things like Blood Moon to respect. I kind of want Tundra or the blue of Counterspell. The white of Supreme Verdict matters some portion of the time. I think I just want to get another basic. Let's take out the Rabble Master. If my opponent misses a land drop, I can strongly consider Prismatic Ending on a Chrome Mox. They did not. I am fine taking that damage. This gives me access to red always, so now this can be another blue land. I think I'll just hold up. Prismatic Ending could just answer most of the stuff. I could just Teferi this Goblin token out of play, clear the board. Like with both Teferi and Prismatic Ending, I don't really care about a lock piece resolving once I have blue, white off basics. Slightly longer term, I do have to figure out what I'm going to do with this. So getting deeper into my deck to draw a Swords to Plowshares or whatever is like perfectly reasonable. Spell Snare. That is something that can counter a Chalice on 1. I don't really care if my opponent like plays a Goblin that creates a 1/1 and kills this Teferi. Yeah, like this is perfectly fine. The Teferi's static ability is not doing a ton in this matchup. Yep. Ponder better than Hold Up Spell Snare, probably. These cards are very good. Let's put that 2 down. We'll go Yaw, and then pass the turn. Actually, do I want to just Prismatic Ending? I'm not actually holding up Counterspell. I don't know, maybe I do just want to Snapcaster Swords. Work on clearing the board. The Monarch is less contested. I don't know, I guess I want to Prismatic Ending this because Snapcaster Swords is a way to answer Den of the Bugbear if my opponent draws a Soul Land and can start activating it. Fable is actively good. My opponent missed an attack for 1. What is the strongest thing on my opponent's board? And just potentially Snapcaster, Prismatic Ending the Fable. I think I'm just going to leave open my mana, though, because I have Snapcaster Swords while still holding up Spell Snare. My opponent junked an Ancient Tomb, which would let Den of the Bugbear immediately activate. So I'm going to let my opponent attack. All right, fantastic. So my opponent has played their land pre-combat, so I'm just fully informed for this turn cycle. Target Swords. We'll just Swords the 1/1 and block the 2/2, give my opponent 1 less life. I'll take some blocks once the stack clears here. I don't know whether or not my opponent knows that they can activate this. So I think I'm just maxing out here. I'll do this for X's 4. I think I attack with 2 of them. It's possible I just go the full 8, though. I just let my opponent take it back, and we trade the Monarch back and forth. Because, like, the longer the game goes on, the scarier the Fable is if I don't draw an out to it. Yeah, let's just bash in for 2, which guarantees becoming the Monarch and makes holding it easier. Makes my opponent's immediate attacks worse. And I think I try to bury my opponent in cards. Once I untap with these, I'm much more comfortable. If my opponent can play a big Haymaker this turn, things are a little awkward. Cool. Supreme Verdict, not exactly good right now. We're not too far away from it being good. So if my opponent activates Den of the Bugbear and then copies it, that's 4 potential bodies, so I need all of these. Well, my opponent sat there and then did nothing until they timed out. So there's a W, I guess. So how do we feel about this one at the end of the league? Let's kind of ignore the last round, which doesn't super count. I kind of felt like the deck was awkward. I just think the mana base that I used as a starting point was just wrong. Like, it felt clunkier than it should have. Like, maybe we just exist in the world now where it's not correct to play Prismatic Vista for the most part anymore because it doesn't fetch a Surveil land. That's something that I definitely wanted to have access to this league. And I'm running all of these basics so that I can run 2 copies of Magus of the Moon in the sideboard. And that card is powerful, and I believe it did outright win us a game. I am still kind of coming to terms with how do you balance wanting to have basics because they're good against like your wasteland back to basics, blood moons, things of that nature, versus how good it is to have access to fetchable Surveil lands. Like, there were just some subtle things that were awkward, like wanting early blue for actual factual counterspell in a deck that is trying to go like 1, 2, 3 in terms of first 3 land drops. And
there's 2 Supreme Verdicts in this deck, which require white. And if you like try to set up white, blue, you can't use Flame as a early-ish removal spell. So I don't know quite where that leaves me. I feel like this card was just half a turn cycle too slow, just consistently all league, where like it had things that I could theoretically counter, but if I held this up, I wasn't, you know, removing something or continuing to hit my land drops by pondering. So like conceptually, I really was excited about this card, and then I don't feel like it delivered. I am not sure if I ever lined up this for 2 modes. Maybe I did once in the video. That was harder to do than I expected. I just have so few targets for removal that as these like games drag on and we were playing draw go, we were playing against some lightning bolt deck, like some Delver variant or something, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna put one of these in play just for Flame of Anor, and I just immediately ate a lightning bolt because I was presenting no other threats. And while I normally wouldn't care about these bodies in like a control deck, when you are specifically trying to get the extra value out of Flame, it matters. And so like I did kind of care about these things getting removed sometimes. I feel like the all-star of this league was kind of Supreme Verdict. This was a card that I was very constantly thinking about. Like Supreme Verdict was one of my best sources of card advantage. Just like take out multiple bodies for 1 card, clear the board, and then things like this took over the game. Let's say that I play this again. Specifically, like, let's say I want to fire another Flame of Anor league. Like, how do I do that? Maybe you need a higher density of wizards than what I did. Like, maybe some of this stuff becomes sprites. Like, every instant and sorcery that you take out of the deck makes the 3 Snapcaster mages that are a major source of card advantage for this deck worse. So, like, I do slightly worry about that. And every extra body that I put into the deck makes it so that my Supreme Verdicts, which are very good, have more collateral damage on my end. The sprites and Snapcaster mages dying to, like, Orcish Bowmaster pings is not great. And, like, on that note, Flame of Anor as a just 3 mana draw 2 that will always come down after the opponent has the possibility of casting Bowmasters is also a little bit awkward. So I don't think we played a bad deck today overall. I think it needs some polish, either in terms of adjusting the mana base or adjusting some of the numbers on the wizards. I don't know that I generally recommend this over another control option, like, say, 4-color beans, 5-color beans, or maybe something that has access to just better threats, you know, the Murktide Regents of the world. Like, this was realistically a 2-2 league where we got a bye in the last round, so do with that information what you will. Let me know down in the comments below kind of what you think about this. Folks, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day, and if you find that you need cards, check out toamagic.com and use promo code ThrabenU to save a little bit on your order. All right, see ya!